So we came up with the idea of having a talk called Chi and Tea, mainly because it rhymes, to be honest. But also I know a fair bit about Chi, and so do you, but you might not know it consciously. And the reason why you would know about it is because if you didn't have it, you really wouldn't be here. I think it's a Chinese saying, or somebody said it, which is that you can live probably a week or more, without food and water, but you can't live 1 single second without Chi. That's how important it is. And really, in a way, like when we're sitting in this room and you think that there's radio waves going through here, there's probably television channels going through here that we can't see and we're not aware of. Well, Chi's a little bit like that to me. And to me, it's kind of like as if you imagine that the room is full of kind of like little light particles of kind of life force, which is what your Chi is. It's your life force looking for somewhere to kind of like be. So it's almost like life force looking to procreate life, or looking to extend life or create life in some way. Then that to me becomes very exciting. So you don't normally feel it, but you would certainly feel it when you haven't got it. So any of you who've ever gone to visit somebody in hospital, have you ever had that feeling where you walk away and you feel exhausted? Or actually, do you actually have any moany friends? Friends who like to tell you about their problems and stuff, and they're like, ming, 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 and you're kind of like, yes, it's really fascinating, I'm terribly sorry that all of those really bad things are happening to you. Give me some oxygen! You feel really drained. Now, I have a controversial point, because most people say that those people are kind of like, they're energy vampires, and they're sucking your energy, and they're coming at you, no, save me from the energy vampires, help! Okay, well, I don't see them to be energy vampires. I actually think that we're biologically programmed to send energy out to other people. We're just made up of energy and we send it out to other people. So, in other words, if I had brought my pips, which I didn't bring my pips, it would have been fascinating, but if you get some pips that you leave in from an apple and you allow them to dry, they kind of, get a bit dry over a couple of days, and you put those onto a white piece of paper, then you ruthlessly cut open a fresh apple, and you put those pips about 1 inch away on the white paper from the drying apple pips. And then a remarkable thing starts to happen. You can try this at home, it's completely safe, or they use a blunt knife. When you actually look at the apple pips, you'll see that there's like a little ring of energy going around the healthy apple pips, and it sends like a line going across to the drying apple pips. And so if apples have some kind of level of consciousness where it goes, ooh, I'll tell you what, these apple pips don't look so well. They look ever so pale. I think that we should send them some energy. I don't really think that the apple has a consciousness in that way, but it has a life force. And we are biologically designed with our life force to heal what is similar to ourselves. So this is why strange people hug trees. I'm saying they're strange, but actually I have been prone to a little bit of tree hugging on the quiet. So this is why people kind of get in touch with nature. It's why you feel rejuvenated in nature, because nature is where the greatest life force is. So when you're in nature, when you're somewhere, like I was a bit crazy yesterday. I went for a walk on Western-super-Mare Beach. Now that's not crazy enough, but I went for a walk with the dog. It was freezing cold, it was pouring with rain, and it was windy at the same time. It's one of those days where you put up an umbrella and it instantly goes inside out, and then you look like, like a cartoon or something, because you're kind of like being pulled along the beach. That was me being pulled along the beach. But what I needed the weather. I needed that feeling of life force that comes from the weather. So being buffeted by the wind, being slapped repeatedly by drops of rain across my face made me feel really alive and awake. And it actually, people sort of talk about having your cobwebs blown out from you. It felt like that. It felt like having your cobwebs completely, like your aura being cleaned in a sense, by as if all of the particles of sand were scrubbing it like an exfoliation pad. It felt fantastic. Of course, I was dripping wet by the time I got into the car. I had to come all the way back with the stinky dog. But it was a brilliant thing to do. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about those things that make you feel alive. And the things that make you feel alive is what gets your chi going and what gets that energy going. So let's have a little experiment, so that you can actually feel what chi feels like, because that sounds like a strange thing to say. Because you feel chi all the time, like if you're dancing, massage, making love, enjoying yourself, whatever it is, you know that surge of life force. Everyone knows that surge of life force. But you can actually pull it, because I said that there's like particles of chi. I imagine, I don't know if this is true, but like particles of chi in the room, giving it a place to land or giving it a place to kind of like form is a really good thing to do. So if you don't mind rubbing your hands back to the floor, it's like you're freezing cold. And what this actually does is it stimulates all of your chakras on the palms of your hands. You probably didn't know you had chakras on the palms of your hands, but you do. And in actual fact, can I do a squish test with you all? Sorry, sir. No, not like that. So, there's this bit on your hand, and some people will have it squishy, and some people won't. And if it's squishy, it means that you're a natural healer. And when I say to you that if I say you're squishy, it will probably say that you probably will also find that you attract people who need help into your life all the time. Like some crazy person on the bus or someone like that. You'll always find people that you need attract help to. So do you mind if I go around and squish you? Can I squish you? Oh, healer and intelligent. Oh, healer, but you're a teacher. So how could you not have the squishing? Right, okay. Intellectually healing. So you come up with brilliant ideas for people, although nobody probably listens. That's what I found. Yeah, healer, but of a sensual nature. Yeah, you do have a lot of healing qualities, but with your healing qualities, it's kind of like it's more. I don't think it's about humans. So I don't know if it's about animals or what it is, but it seems to be that. So we'll leave that in the air. He's laughing at me like, what? Yeah, again, more kind of like humans and animals, but it kind of like and plants and stuff. Okay. Oh. Now, were more so in the past have learnt to care less. So, good quality. Need to teach some other people on the other side of the room that quality, but it just happens over time. There's people with two problems in life, yours and somebody else's, and you just get wound up in somebody else's, and now you just deal with people who you can actually help. And
well, that's an ongoing journey.
You've succeeded massively from where you would have been.
Okay.
So congratulations, that's good for the ongoing journey. Yeah, you've trained in healing now, haven't you? Yeah. You can tell, you can always tell because it has a different level of squish to it. I will squish yours later, madam. So it's quite interesting because I think we are all, and when I say healers, I'm not fond of the word healer actually, because it implies that everyone else has to be broken and you're not. What I really mean by healing is I mean someone who's compassionate enough to want to care about other people, you know, or to care about other things or animals or places, or just to take care. That somebody who isn't so wrapped up in themselves that they only think about what I am and what I have and what I want. So that's what I really mean by healing. So, if you wouldn't mind, back to that again. And then, if you could just put your palms up, and you can imagine this any way you like really, and you don't have to close your eyes to do it, but you can imagine that there's droplets of light, you know, like how the sun hits rain. You can imagine that that's falling into your hands. You can do it any way you like really, but just imagine that there's something very beautiful and very positive, and imagine it to be some kind of light-based thing, because that's just easier to get your head around, falling into your hands. And even though I do have a bit of a sceptical mind, so even though we've rubbed our hands together, and you go, well, yeah, that's why my hands are tickly, but can you feel a shift of kind of sensation over the top of your hands? Anyone can answer at any time.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put our hands like this, like we're holding a ball or kind of like a lotus type position. And in the space in between your hands, imagine that you're pouring all your love, all like the just exciting, brilliant things that make you feel really wonderful in the world. And if you like, you can visualise wonderful things going into your hands as well. Anything that you want to put in there. So just basically get excited about the space in between your hands. That's the easiest way to kind of put it. And then you'll probably start to feel that chi point that I was squishing, which is where your chi energy comes out, which is below your thumb, on that squishy bit. You probably feel that that feels like it's pulling. So carry on feeling lovingly excited and generally fluffy about that space between your hands. And then you might start to feel that your hands are trying to part. So let's just mess with it a little and just very gently kind of pulse inwards. Can you feel the resistance?
Yes. I love that.
Good, that's your chi. And the longer you do this, the more resistance you will feel, and the more you will feel like you're holding a rubber ball. And this is quite a useful thing to do, because what it does is you can actually, you know, people talk about manifestation. You can actually pretend like you're holding a crystal ball, and in this space you can visualise all your dreams, anything you want, just, you know, or just basically just pouring your happiness into it. And then you can, if you want to, put your hands underneath it and throw it into the air. We won't do this just yet, because there's an option B. So you can throw it into the air with an amazing amount of gratitude to believe that the little dream that you've put into your chi energy, because your chi energy is your life force, that it will send it out like a wish that's better than pulling apart a chicken bone. Did you ever do that, the wishbone on a chicken? It's quite grim really when you think about it. My mum used to try it. And she'd kind of like, because you have to use your little finger and you have to make a wish. Yeah. And me and my brother would do it, and I'd get so obsessed about, so that in the end he'd like give me the bigger bone, because I'd almost cry if I didn't get the wish. And I go, it's not the same, it's not my wish. He goes, well, I wish you could have my wish. Oh, good. I will have your wish. But yeah, so it's much better than doing it with a chicken bone, honest. So you can throw your wish up into the air, or your dream up into the air, with as much gratitude as you like, to say that that dream is coming, and that's what I'm having. Thanks ever so much. Great stuff. Or the other thing you can do is, because this is life force, if you imagine that, I believe from the point of the Big Bang, everything's made of sound. So in a sense, what you've got here is an undulating, ovulating, vibrational thing that is actually in your hands. And so if there's something that is out of discord, so in other words, if you've got a bodily organ that is not behaving as it should, it will be out of tune. Because all of the organs in your body, or your muscles, or your blood, and everything, to me, make sound. I can hear all of these things. So if it's out of tune, then the chi energy can also harmonise it back into tune. So we're not saying it's wrong or it's a bit broken, but it's out of tune. So I'm going to take my energy and I'm going to stick it into my gallbladder, because I've got a dodgy gallbladder at the moment. So mine, I'm just going to very carefully bring it into the gallbladder. Very nice. And then you guys can put it on your dodgy knee, on your own brain, whatever you want to do, or throw it up into the air with gratitude about your dream. And how you would do that, you'd have it like that, you put your hands underneath it, and you just go, thank you, like that. You will look silly, we'll all close our eyes, but up to you what you want to do. What are you going to do with your chi ball? That's a very nice place to put it. Have you got a dream? Yay! Yay! See, I told you it was intelligent. Now, super intelligence is what you're going to have now. That's quite scary. Quite scary. So, any questions on any of that whilst we stop there? Good. I've either explained it very well, or you're like, just cut to the end and let's drink some more tea. Okay, so that's how you can sort of feel chi. Now, what chi will do is, chi has different resonances with your chakras as well, and you can feel different things in your body, and you can feel your energy system differently. So one of the things that sometimes happens, have you ever noticed when people get into arguments, because you can have positive chi and negative chi. Now, I'm not saying that anything's positive or negative, because it's all pretty much the same thing. But there can be an outburst of life force even when you're having an argument. And this kind of explains why couples, perhaps when they've had an argument, need to retire. So there is this build of energy that kind of like comes up even when having an argument. And you might see this in animals. So if you've ever had dogs that fight, they'll have a fight and then afterwards they'll shake. Or if you see ducks, and they'll have a little bit of a Barney on the pond, that was my bit of bread, get me a bit of bread, and then they'll kind of go onto their backs and they'll flap their wings. So actually what happens is, when there has been an outburst, we shake off the chi that we don't want. As human beings, we don't do that. We go into our head and we go, I should have said this, I could have said that, I wish I'd said that, now if I'd have said that, I'd have won the argument. But we'll overplay it, and we'll go into our ego and we'll think about what we should have done, or should have said, or where we should have been, or shouldn't have gone. But in actual fact, kids don't. Kids still do the shaking thing. So if you've ever told a child they can't have something, have you ever seen them, they do this thing, where the whole body goes stiff and they go, and then they walk off. Have you noticed that? They do that. Maybe I'm over-dramatising, but they do that. Well, that's them shaking off all of that negative energy. They just do that. So I'm going to teach you a thing called a Tibetan hat. I have to say it's from Tibet, because that makes it sound really cool. Because if I sort of said, it's an Essex hat, you'd be like, okay, great, brilliant. Okay, do I need to be wearing a boot tube? Anyway, so, if you don't mind standing up, what we're going to do is we're going to send energy from the base chakra, and it's going to come out through the throat chakra. So what happens is, you know when you've had an argument, you kind of like go into your belly, it all goes into your belly, doesn't it? You kind of like go, oh, and just like, and you sort of seethe and your stomach turns over and churns. So what we need to do is you waggle your knees backwards and forwards very, very fast as you can. So you waggle, 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 until it gets to the point where it's really, really exhausting, you wish you were wearing a better bra. So you waggle, 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 waggle. And then what you're going to do is you're going to clench your butt cheeks. This is the fun bit. Not someone else's, your own. You're going to clench your butt cheeks, and then you're going to go ha. Okay, so we're going to have to build this. Here we go. Build, 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 waggle, 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 ha! Oh, God, that feels good. Okay, you can sit back down. So, and how do you feel? It's really good. So, next time you have an argument with the boss at work, you know what to do, you go into the toilet. All you'll hear is this ha coming out of the room. But ha has great energy to it as well, because it's like ha ha ha, you know, so it's actually quite good. And it means you don't sit and seethe on things, and it doesn't get stored in the body, and then you don't kind of like keep hold of things a lot longer than you should. So that's a really nice way of doing it. And again, that's like moving chi, moving these things. I did a fair bit of study with Qigong, which is another form of this. And my Qigong teacher told me about a Qigong master who was cremated, and that when he was cremated they found this kind of like perfect glass sort of thing that had basically been made from the chi that he put into his sacral chakra, because that's where most of it kind of like goes, is into your dantian. And it actually created a piece of glass, which I don't know why, and I don't know what use it was. And at the time, everyone was like, wow. And I'm a bit of a scientist, I'm like, wow, but what? Like, and how? You know, but you can't really kind of get into that kind of conversation when you're sort of like, you know, you're doing all of these things, and, you know, you can't really kind of go, what the? So,
you sure it wasn't crystal?
I don't know, he called it glass. So maybe it was crystal, yeah. Well, have you heard the story before?
No, but I mean crystal is different.
Would make more
to
sense.
glass.
Yeah. No, I don't know, he just thought it was glass. Yeah, the vibration wise, you'd think it would be sort of crystal. And also as well, you know, if you can make rocks in your gallbladder and your you know, why not? You know, it kind of makes sense really, doesn't it? You know, there's lots of, all the properties in everything that exists in the world is in each of us, which is always quite illuminating. And there's somebody who was talking just recently that I read that, I don't know whether rocks are, but gallstones and kidneys or somewhere else that you can get them, actually has something to do with geopathic stress as well. So like the rocks of the earth can actually inspire you to start to build rocks in yourself. Fascinating. Yeah, I mean you kind of go, oh, that would probably make some sense. But anyway, slightly off subject. So the chi energy really is in charge of the life force, but most of the time if you feel drained by other human beings, you can just recharge yourself by going into nature, by being where there is life. You know, because people, I mean, I know you teach, but people find that being around children energises them, I'm sure.
Not every day.
Not every day. But, you know, and again, and that's because the chi inside of them is so much brighter and stronger, so that's really quite an amazing thing. So when you know that it's there, you can use it whenever you need to use it. So if you're around people who you are finding draining, rather than cutting down from them, you can actually kind of go, okay, well, where's my resource? And in a sense, kind of open yourself up to like this universal flow of energy, so that you can actually kind of, in a sense, put your fingers into kind of the socket of the universal energy and actually let it flow through you. Because when we are in flow, and people talk about being in flow a lot, but when we are in flow, and life is moving, and we feel like we're at one with everything, and synchronicity happens, and you meet people that you couldn't have thought that you would meet. That's literally when you're in charge of, well, not in charge, but in flow with life force. For example, when you go travelling, you know, and you kind of go, wow, this is great, I'm really curious, you know, so you might be in a country and you might be really aware of the heat or the cold or the smells or the fact that they drive really crazy, you know, or whatever it is that's going on, but you're curious. And curiosity is a vital component of love. And when you're curious about something, it opens up to you. So by becoming curious about it, you are in love with life. So anyone who's had a partner, they've been in a long-term relationship, there's a certain point, or even a flatmate for a long time, there's a certain point where you just know the relationship's over when you don't ask them how their day was because you just don't care. The minute you're no longer curious about another human being, the relationship is finished. You know, and that's because the love has been withdrawn. You just don't love them anymore. You know, and that can be, you know, various reasons. But when you stop being curious about life is when you're not living. It's when you're just existing. And so when we go travelling, we become back in love with life because we're going, oh, look at that building, oh, look at that, oh, isn't that interesting, and oh, look at the colour of this. You know, and then you meet all of these really amazing people who are just come from where you're going, or someone who lives around the corner from you 5 years ago that you would never have met, blah, blah, blah. You would never have met them if they lived around the corner from you in an environment like this, because you're not curious enough to, because you're just basically going, I'm going from A to B and I've got to get some shopping. And that's it. But when we open up to curiosity, we're opening up to chi, we're opening up to life force, we're opening up to flow, and then not only do we get things coming to us, but we are navigating and undulating and ovulating with life itself. Then we feel part of everything, not something swimming up the downstream trying to get somewhere that seems impossible to get to. We seem like we're in flow with the stream, and the stream was always going where we wanted to go. Any questions at this point? Good? Okie dokie. So, bringing on from that, when I was saying about everything being made of sound, you all have a theme tune. Do you remember Bod? I used to love Bod. Bod was brilliant because Bod had a theme tune, and it was a little penny whistle, and then the policeman had his own theme tune. So right at the beginning of Bod, it would like be one person would kind of like come in and you would have Aunt Flo's music and Bod's music, and they would just be introduced by music. But that music told you all about their personality and who they were. So the policeman went pom 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 ba da da dum 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 da 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 da. This is bringing in flashbacks. Anyway, and you could tell he was like the stickler for rules. You know, the person who could like do everything rule based and very kind of like he was definitely a very good policeman. And so when you knew that, you could tell his character just from the music. Well, I hear people. So you can hear somebody's sound and you get something about their personality or what drives them or what motivates them. So people will say that somebody comes into a room and they'll go, oh, that person's really heavy. Well, they're talking about bass tones. Or they'll say that person's so light-hearted. They're talking about high pitches. So really, you all resonate somewhere between do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I resonate probably between 3 different octaves depending on my mood. You know, but pretty much you can tell when someone's always do, re, mi, or mi, fa, sol, but in tune. So you can kind of tell and you can hear things. So you can hear it in other people, but I'm not going to kind of go, what does each person sound like? But sometimes I look at someone and go, drum and bass, or R&B, or somebody else is like classic, or indie rock. You can tell people's different kind of like sounds and the way that they are. But you can do that with absolutely everything, because everything makes a sound, so everything resonates. And even if you can't hear it with your ears, which you probably can't because you're very clever, but you can feel it in your body, so you can feel different things in your body. So, for example, tea, you can hear that as well. So you can hear it in different ways. So one way of testing how you hear things is to put it over your heart, because your heart is a real sponge for all sorts of information. So if you stand kind of like with your feet totally apart like that and your knees slightly soft, and then you put something over your heart, then you'll find that your body will either tip forwards or tip back, depending on what it likes and doesn't like, which is really handy, because those allergy tests are quite expensive. So ultimately, if you're kind of like going, why am I bloating? Am I wheat or gluten intolerant? Or is it lactose? Could be lactose, could be sugar. Anyway, basically put it over your heart and you'll actually find what your body really wants to do. So we haven't got any nasties in here, unless anyone's got anything sweet like in their handbag. But
is it always one way? Or do you program it yourself?
You don't program it yourself, it just does it quite naturally, but you have to figure out which one works for you. So for me, I always move forward to something that is good for me, and my body always moves back. Because in a sense, your aura, which is going all the way around your body, it usually does everything I want to move to or away from, because of the part of the brain that's called the reptilian response part of the brain. So we're automatically programmed to move backwards from something that we don't like. And that's the reptilian part of the mind that actually causes us to have a reptilian response. So if you meet someone you don't like, you'll have a reptilian response. You're just kind of like, I don't know why, but I need to back up from that person. And you'll find yourself leaning backwards. So I usually find that your body does that in some way, it will move backwards. So what we have got, although this might be a mild way of doing it...
I got would chocolate be necessarily bad?
No,
Come on,
not necessarily
sorry,
bad. But let's see what happens. Because usually what I do is I have these in little tiny bags so that you can't see what's in there. Yeah, just move back. I'm going to try, I'm going to put black tea, I'm going to put white tea because that's my favourite. So see what happens with that. Yeah, moving forward. Does anyone have a go? Yeah. Cool. Okay, so you're going to know which is which, so that's not going to help. So put your feet together, soften your knees.
Together? Slightly apart.
Slightly apart, I'm sorry. Soften your knees, and then just put that over your heart, and then just see how your body tips. Backwards. Very clearly. Yeah, and then see how that goes. Forwards.
Gosh, it's really actually very strong.
It's really strong,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's very clear.
Yeah, and you don't expect it to be strong. You just kind of like go, oh, but it's really, really strong. And I mean, it's a form of kinesiology. Does anyone else want to have a go?
Yeah.